This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Make sure you stop by. Visit Hard Truth today in Nashville. Dustin Dopirak, the Indy Star Pacers beat writer, with us now, and the Pacers schedule will open up on Wednesday night for the Pacers. The regular season begins a year after making it to the conference finals. And Dustin's, and I agree with Dustin that this team is going to be better. You've got guys that like Benedict Mathurin, who is his third year in the league. He is starting to really get his feet set. They have so many guys that can produce. Not every team has five starters that produce. And that's the one thing about this Pacer team, Dustin, is they all five starters and then deeper. These guys can produce for this team, and you have a plethora, whether you're talking about Siakam or Tyrese Halliburton, so it's going to be a good year. But you read the piece in the paper, maybe not as good.
Sure, no, we'll see. I mean, I think they're not. Rick Carlisle's not through the preseason effort. Basically, it was a rough one the other night. They came back and won in the fourth quarter. But obviously, what happens in the fourth quarter of preseason games is not telling of really much of anything, because you're not playing your guys by that point. Generally, it's sort of like preseason football where you don't have any starters in the fourth quarter ever. Ben Shepherd kind of carried them back at the end. I think. They've got all these guys that have been there before. They've got a lot of guys to produce. And to your point, the depth is really the thing. I mean, like their most difficult decision is who's the 11th guy. Is it Jarris Walker? Is it Ben Shepherd? Is it Ben Mathurin? So, I mean, it's probably Shepherd is probably the odd man out. But that's a guy that they trusted to play major minutes as a rotation guy, as a rookie last year. Like, he's probably one of their most trustworthy players. And I imagine he'll probably have to take a back seat at the start of the year, at least, to get the two lottery picks in, Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker. And again, two lottery picks were guys that weren't really part of the rotation last year, because Mathurin had the torn labrum and Walker just hadn't worked his way in there yet. And they really believe in him. They really believe in Walker just because his total skill set really stands out. I don't think I'm stealing a line from Caitlin Cooper, is a fantastic analyst. She covers the Pacers as well. She's excellent in terms of X and O's, far beyond what I could say. But her point with Walker is always that his defense in reality is not what it is in theory yet, basically, because he was drafted, because he's got this huge wingspan, and he was on, was a great defender for Houston with Kelvin Sampson. So you figure, okay, like this is going to translate, and it's taken a minute because he's a little bit more, he gambles a little bit too much. He's got to defend with his feet a little bit more, but there's a capacity there to be a really good defender, and he's gotten way better offensively. He's shooting the ball really, really well. So those pieces have a chance, but I mean, you already have, you have McConnell, you have Toppin, guys that can really run and score. You saw just how much better TJ is, just how well this offense suits him. And so, he's back and everybody looks, sort of individually better. They got to get connected. They didn't seem connected in the preseason. Obviously that's what their superpower is when they're good, is connecting, is basically understand where everybody's going to be and maximizing each other's talents. And you haven't seen that yet, but they do, have a history of, not taking certain games as seriously as they should. And that's why they were a good playoff team. And you didn't see those kind of slip ups, but they had their moments last year when they lost to teams like the Wizards and the Spurs and the Blazers and Charlotte, when you're like, oh, okay, guys, what are you doing? Like you're supposed to beat this team. But, they tend to, rise up when it comes to big ones. And so obviously they got, Detroit on Wednesday, and it's a game that counts. Presumably they're going to, dial it up, even though it is a Pistons team that's been struggling for the last half decade. But then they go into Madison Square Garden on Friday, and you have to presume that the lights are going to get them going again. So we'll see what that looks like. But, there's continuity. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of depth. They should be, a contender in the East. I mean, other teams have invested. Obviously, Boston is still Boston. They still probably have the best starting five in the league, with White and Holiday and Tatum and Brown and Porzingis. If those guys are healthy, they're truly loaded. The Knicks went out and got Karl Anthony Towns and Michael Bridges. I mean, not giving up, but losing Dante DiVincenzo matters. I mean, because he was like third in the league behind Curry and Doncic in threes last year. So that is given something up that's major. I don't think anybody really understood how good Dante DiVincenzo was last year. But all the same, the rest of their pieces are really, really good. And yes, Maxine does say hi to everybody, by the way, you guys saw her. And Philly, if Paul George is healthy, stays healthy, obviously he's going to miss a little bit. He hyperextended his knee, but all his tendons are safe. So he's just got a bone bruise. And that should, cost him a week, 2 weeks, somewhere in that vicinity. But you get Philly back, and they're going to be really good. You still have Giannis and Dame Lillard together in Milwaukee. Orlando's making a rise. Cleveland looks good. Miami is still there, but I mean, there's 8 really good teams in the East where you could shuffle them up, and anybody can be in a different position where they were last year, better or worse. So I think it's just there's a huge drop off after that. You go from 8 to 9, and it's a pretty big gap. It was in standings, and it still is in reality. But any of those top 8 teams, the Pacers could find themselves higher or lower, by a couple spots in either direction. When you come down to it by the end of the year.
And from your piece, Andrew Nembhard has been a solid contributor, but he needs to be a little more aggressive offensively. He's been involved a lot, it seems, but especially when you look at the stats you put up, compared him to TJ McConnell, that he played 400 more minutes than McConnell, who's the backup point guard, but McConnell took 71 more shots and scored 104 more points. That's significant.
Yeah, no, I mean, Andrew, it's fun. I'm working on an Nembhard piece that I've got to finish sometime in the next 24 hours. But that I'm kind of going through. But he was very he was just built to be a point guard. And so him operating as a 2, he's got experience doing it before. But I think he's just always viewed himself as a facilitator first. And that's true with a lot of guys. I mean, basically, when they were telling McConnell, go get your buckets, especially once Mathurin got hurt, it was like, okay, someone's got to, at least create off the bounce. Someone's got to attack off the dribble, on the second unit, and it's got to be you. I mean, and he's fine with that. He's super fast moving the ball. But I mean, I think Nembhard was just all right, he got on the floor for defense. I mean, the reason he's in the starting unit in the first place is as a rookie, they figured out pretty fast he was one of the best defensive players, and he still is. And basically, he went back to being backup point guard last year to start the year. And McConnell was basically the third guy, and they just had to find some ways to get McConnell minutes, and it didn't really jive together until they traded Bruce Brown as part of the Siakam deal, and Nembhard moved up to the first team 2, and McConnell was really, had all of his minutes as the backup 1 the rest of the way. And so they were able to make that kind of whole ecosystem work so you could play all 3 guys. But, Nembhard, I think he just viewed it as, okay, I'm secondary ball handler. And really what that meant for Halliburton, especially last year, was I got to be a guy that he can give the ball to so he can go run around, I think he viewed his existence as I'm to hold the ball so Tyrese can go get himself in a better advantageous position than bringing it up and getting double teamed at the timeline. So I think that's kind of how he viewed it. And they got into the playoffs and they were like, hey, Drew, listen, they're going to key on Halliburton and they're going to key on Siakam. You're going to get an advantageous matchup and you have to take advantage of it. So I think he got really better at moving without the ball, not just dribble driving, but saying, all right, I'm going to move to score instead of moving to facilitate, instead of being there. And there were times when he still did. I mean, I think if we rewatched the 3-pointer he hit to beat the Knicks in Game 3, it was the biggest shot of their year. Nembhard is basically sitting there waiting just in case Tyrese gets in trouble. He gets the ball probably 40 feet from the bucket and takes a couple dribbles and hits a step back 3. And Halliburton was being double teamed at the timeline. And there were guys who were open, but cross court that it was a dangerous pass if he'd have thrown it. Nembhard was just standing right there. But he did more last year of just, of cutting, of attacking the basket on cuts in the playoffs and just trying to beat guys and beating guys backdoor. And that was something I didn't see a lot from him earlier. But I mean, he is definitely viewing as I'm looking to score more. And so that doesn't mean he's not going to get 32 like he did in Game 3 against Boston was Nembhard when Halliburton was out. He's always known, all right, when Halliburton's out, I got to go score. I mean, he had 31 to beat Golden State as a rookie. He had 26 in the game to beat Milwaukee as a rookie when Halliburton was out. But he's generally kind of deferred when he's been playing next to Halliburton, but I think he's sort of more figured out a way of where do I get my buckets when he's on the floor, and what does that look like? I think he's found a much better sense of how to play that role and not feel like he's taking away something, and feeling like that he can be made to fit better. And you saw that, I think, in a couple preseason games. I think he had 21 game. I mean, so he looks like he's ready for that. And he's got a really good get in the middle mid-range game. Can shoot it from distance, can get all the way to the rim. So I think I'm going to see his offensive game blossom somewhere in the 15-point range. I don't think he's going to average 20. But even if he's up from 9 to 15, 16, that makes a pretty significant difference for them.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, brother?
Yeah, Wednesday in Detroit. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, I'm working on that Nembhard piece. Hopefully, get that together, and that'll tell you a lot about his upbringing and how he kind of became the player he became. Really had a dad who prepared him for this, basically prepared him to be a guy that instead of letting him go be the superstar on the team he was at, he had him play 2 years up all the time. And then, always pushed him to go be in the best gym, be around the best players, and be okay being in a situation where he's not the guy. And so that's kind of what it's been like, and have to find your niche, have to figure out what it is that's going to get you on the floor when you're not the best guy. And there might be 3 or 4 guys better than you. I think there's a very interesting story about how that kind of came to be, and just how he coached them different. And then I think you see a lot of guys. So I think that you always hear when it comes to people who transfer, are you preparing the kid for the path? Are you preparing the path for the kid? I mean, this is a guy who prepared the kid for the path. I think this is kind of an interesting story. He played at Montverde, before Renew and Hood Schifino and those type of guys. He played with RJ Barrett, and transferred to Gonzaga when they were loaded because it was going to be tough to get on the floor. And so I think a lot of that stuff is interesting and kind of prepared him to be drafted on a team where, the point guard is the franchise player and getting a max contract, and you got to figure out, okay, well, you're not going to be him. Who are you going to be? So I think that's been interesting.
Absolutely. Make sure you are giving Dustin a follow and staying up to date on all things Pacers with the Indy Star, as Dustin is the beat writer for the Pacers. Thank you, my friend. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Will do. Thanks as always, Jim.
And to Maxine. Got to make sure Maxine's in there as well. Hey, we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from, of course, the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios, high atop Brick House number 1. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at the Rusty Gator in Bedford. Stop by and give them a visit. Back with more right after this. This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.